everyone, this is DadOTron99 and welcome back to another episode of my Save the World Guide for Beginners. Today we are covering episode 2, which is an introduction to using a hero, and the hero we're going to go over as our example is Rescue Trooper Ramirez. She is the first hero that you receive after leaving the tutorial, and we're going to use her as an example to show what heroes are. We're going to cover an overview of the command menu and what you can see about the different heroes, the different classes, do a very quick overview over their perks and their abilities, and a little bit with the loadout. And then we're going to jump into a quick mission just to demonstrate how you do the different bases of how you attack and the different methods of attacking in Save the World based on the hero that you have. So, starting off here in the command menu, we can see that we have our heroes. When we go in here and take a look at managing our heroes, we can choose the different categories on the top there. I use the trigger buttons because I play on PC, but I play controller on PC because I'm old and ergonomically the controller just feels better. I'm too old to be playing on mouse and keyboard all the time. It makes my hands hurt, is what it is. So I use the controller buttons here to move over to the four main classes of heroes that there are. There are soldiers, there are constructors, there are ninjas, and outlanders. We're not going to get too much into that in this video, but suffice to say, when you start after this tutorial, you get a version of Rescue Trooper Ramirez. Now, I believe you get either a common or an uncommon version of Ramirez, which will be green or blue. The current version that I have is epic, but all of the abilities are the same. So when we take a look at a hero, right, we go inspect the hero, we see a couple of different things here, and let's start with the perks, right? So every class of hero has class perks, and they are the same for every hero of that class. So because Ramirez is a soldier, she gets the class perks for soldiers, which are Suppressive Fire and Stay Frosty, respectively, right? One increases damage based on consecutive shots against the same target, right? And Stay Frosty is after so many eliminations, it increases your ranged weapon damage and the stability of your weapon, which essentially think of that as sort of like the recoil associated with your weapon increases. Okay. There are then two other types of perks, which are the standard perk and the commander perk. These are the same perk, but just with a different level of power. Standard perks are what are used when this hero is put in a support role as part of a larger hero loadout. Now, when you first start the game, you won't have unlocked hero loadouts to start with and support heroes, so the standard perks won't come into play for the first little bit. The commander perk is when this hero is the lead of a hero or the commander of a hero loadout, right? In which case, that perk is more powerful. So in the case of Ramirez, she gets the assault damage perk. And because she's going to be commander for us, that is an increase of assault and SMG damage by 50%. And we can see that if she is in a support role in a larger hero loadout, that damage is only 17%. Okay? So we have those different pieces there. And then we also have abilities. And the abilities are what make heroes unique and how you can come up with a lot of different and varied loadouts based on different heroes and the different abilities they have. In this instance, Ramirez has Frag Grenade, Shockwave, and Going Commando. If we take a look at some other heroes, they're going to have, the abilities are where they, the abilities and the standard and commander perks are where heroes differ, right? And when you go to build your hero loadouts, combining them in different combinations is where the power comes from. So the good part about abilities is that these are alternate ways of attacking. And as we'll talk about when we go in, early Stoneman, one of the key things to remember is that as you play the first couple of missions, especially the first couple pages of missions, ammo ammunition is at sort of a premium. You can find it through chests and things like that. You can get it by looting, by eliminating enemies. There's a lot of ways of finding it. You can also craft ammunition through the crafting materials that you're also going to collect when you start farming in missions. But you have to be cautious of your ammunition early on. And these perks don't cost ammunition. They're abilities that just go down on a cooldown, right? So if you do going commando, for example, it's going to run for 100. It's going to run for I think 10 seconds, as we see, and then it's got a cooldown of 100 seconds, and then you can use it again. So, a combination of melee weapons and abilities are ways to attack in the game without having to utilize ammunition. So, what are some of the general attributes of a soldier? Soldiers are usually more focused around perks and abilities that give buffs to ranged combat. They do more burst style damage with the different types of weapons that they have, right? Sometimes they'll get things like headshot multipliers and these types of things that are more focused on ranged weapons. Their abilities are fairly straightforward if you're sort of a regular, run and gun assault rifle type of player, right? Or, like I said, you're used to playing battle royale and those and using those ranged weapons. Then soldiers are sort of an easy fit or a comfortable fit. You'll be familiar with the types of gameplay and gunplay that they sort of have as a class, and they're very easy when you get started, which is why they give you Ramirez to start with right off the bat. Okay. Okay, let's jump into a match, and we'll take a look at some of the different pieces here. Now, what I am going to do as well is when we go back here and look at our hero loadout, I have cleared out a loadout. So normally a loadout, as you get deeper into the game, right, you've got your commander, as we can see here. You've got a team perk that you can select from a bunch of different team perks as you unlock them. As you get more heroes, you can start to assign heroes of any class to the support team. And then you can also add gadgets. So, I've cleared off, because when you start the game, your hero loadout is going to look like this. And you might not even see the support team slots and team perk slots because you unlock them as you start to do the first several missions within Stonewood. The one thing I am going to add, just to sort of so I can show it, the other option here for attack abilities that don't consume ammunition are gadgets. Again, you won't have these when you first start the game, but you do unlock them fairly early on as you go through Stonewood. Most commonly, you usually unlock things like the supply drop and the stationary hover turret first. Airstrike also unlocks fairly quickly. In the early game, Airstrike's okay, although I think they have given it some buffs recently. But most players, use the stationary hover turret because it's just the most consistent way of giving you some sustained attack ability over time. Just like abilities, these work on a cooldown system. So you don't necessarily have a limited amount of these, but every time you use them, right, you have to wait for the cooldown before you can use them again. Okay, and based on the times of certain missions, sometimes you may be only able to use these, a handful of times in a mission if the cooldown's very long. Others you can use quite frequently. So as an example, I'm just going to add the stationary hover turret just so we can see what that looks like when we go in game. Okay. Now, if we go to our map, we're going to go to Stonewood. When you first start the game, it's going to take you to a power level mission here, which is 1. You are going to start with this Fight the Storm mission because it's showing you what the different mission types are. So as we go through the Stonewood missions at the beginning of the game, it takes you through almost a tutorial of each mission type, right? So we go all the way back here. We can see here this first mission that we're in here, Fight the Storm. So the storyline and the narration of Ray as sort of the primary character in Save the World, right? They explain what you're supposed to do to a certain extent in a Fight the Storm mission. Then they show an example of what a Ride the Lightning mission looks like. When we go on to page 2, we see here's a Rescue the Survivors mission. Here's a Retrieve the Data mission. So the first couple pages of missions are just teaching you what the different mission types are, right? And it doesn't do these for every single one of them, but it covers the core ones. So point is that this map usually takes you here to this first mission, which is a fight the storm mission. Now, I'm not going to go too much into that mission type in this video. I'm mostly just going to show you what the attack abilities are, and in the following mission or following episode here, we'll go through, you know, sort of a fast-forwarded version of completing some of these missions, what the mission objectives are. We'll do an overview of that in another video, right? But for now, let's just jump in and show some basic combat pieces around what you know, a soldier and a hero can do. So we'll just load into the mission here. You'll also notice when you load in here that it does put you into a lobby, right? This lobby looks like the typical lobby that you're used to when you see playing Battle Royale, and you can invite people to your party. If you launch the mission immediately, the lobby is still open, and so sometimes you may start the mission, and as you're playing, you'll hear people, you know, sort of join the lobby. So people can still join you even after you've launched the mission, so keep that in mind. Also, later in the game when you get additional hero loadouts, you can use your trigger buttons or whatever the keyboard button is to actually change your loadouts here before you jump into the mission, right? So we're going to use Ramirez as a soldier, and let's launch the mission. And you can see here, even in this screen here, it gives you a basic overview of what the mission is. We've got some narration from Ray as our sort of our primary NPC character, right, or storyline character. It tells us what to do. If you hit, for me, it's up on the D-pad on controller, but if you go here to the objectives, it also tells you what your current missions are, right? Find the target, place an atlas, defend and fortify, right? So you can always, if you forget what the objective is of the current mission, you can take a look at that. You can also take a look at any of your pinned missions as you get into it. It'll show all those pieces here. So, key point is, what are the different types of attack abilities? Right? So, on the bottom right there, you see our normal weapons, right? We have our pickaxe, right? And we've got 4 slots. 3 of the slots can have weapons in them. Typically, the 4th slot is reserved for healing items. And the most common items of those, as you play the game, as you can see here, as I destroy the bird, is just picking up meat, right? And that goes into that healing slot, right? You can put whatever you want in those 3 weapon slots, but that's a combination of range weapons, melee weapons, of those 2, right? In any combination that you want. So, just like Battle Royale, right? We can aim in with range weapons, right? And again, right, they have all the same sort of aspects. There are a lot of different weapon types, right? In the melee weapons, right? There are assault rifles, there are SMGs. If we go take a look at, you know, our range weapons here, right? If you sort, you can actually sort by subtype, and it breaks them into, hey, right, these are my assault rifles, these are my explosive weapons, these are my pistols, my shotguns, sniper rifles, things like that. Okay, so that's just normal, right? We've got range weapons as we can do that. As you can see, those take ammunition. And if you look at the schematic, these weapons all have durability. So as you use them, the durability goes down, right? And eventually you'll have to recraft them. Okay? Now, as you destroy animals, right, and other things like that, animals and husks, they will drop resources, right? So just be aware that you have to always pick those up, right? And farming is a big piece of this. We've also got melee weapons, right, which usually all have a primary attack, right? And then they have a secondary or, right, a heavy attack. And then we've got, you know, different types of, you know, what bows are considered snipers, right? But they are essentially a long-range weapon, right? You can use those as well. Okay, so those are sort of the normal weapons, and most people are probably pretty familiar with those, right? For using and attacking husks and enemies. That's pretty straightforward, right? Now, what we want to do is say, let's find some other enemies here. The other options, when you look down on the right-hand side there, is we've got our abilities. Right, and you can see using my combination of controllers, I have 3 abilities that I can do: going commando, frag grenades, and the shockwave smash. Right, so if we take a look at doing our going commando, it gives us basically a minigun, and as you can see, I get to run this for so many seconds until it runs out, but it doesn't cost me ammo, right? It's just part of the ability. And then you can see on the icon down there, 87 seconds, so now it's on its cooldown. So I can't run going commando again until that cooldown completes its cooldown. Also, some abilities and things, if you see in the left hand bar, right, you'll see that I've got a yellow bar, right? So we've got 3 bars: blue for shields, green for health, and yellow for energy. Certain abilities require energy as well. So if we take a look here, I think if we throw our grenades, right, every grenade I throw takes some energy, right? And so you also sometimes have to keep an eye on your energy because you can't use abilities again until that energy bar goes up as well. Okay, so we've got that one. Let's also take a look at, we threw our grenades, and then we'll do our last one, which is our smash. Let's just go find some characters that we can, so find some husks somewhere around here. We'll find some quickly. There we go. And you can always sort of see, the husks are always sort of sleeping until you sort of get close enough and wake them up. So if I sort of stir these ones up, right, get their attention, then I can also use sort of an area smash, which is this back here. Right? So as you can see, lots of different ways to attack in there. Now, the last one I'll show you is the gadgets. Right? So in this case, we have the hover turret. So my other option for this is if I stir a bunch of these characters up, I had to get these husks all woken up. And we'll talk about what blue glow is in another episode. I won't go over that today, but it's important to mission objectives. So if we bring these guys this way, right, we see that on the right, on the lower left, I have two gadgets that I can select as part of a mission. So if I hit my left D-pad, it's going to deploy my hover turret. And my hover turret is basically like an automated, right, aim assist drone. And then they persist for a period of time, right? And they just fire anything within a certain range, right? So again, other ways of attacking husks without having to use your ranged weapons and use up your ammunition, which in the early game is kind of a precious resource, right? And then eventually we'll see this guy, when his time runs out, he will eventually right, despawn, and then it also has a cooldown if you take a look at it. So that are, those are the basic ways of attacking in Save the World up front. Maybe sorry, and the last one is traps, right? So what we'll do is there is a survivor looking for assistance down here somewhere. Actually, let's just also see. You also find, so as an example, here's a chest, and you see a bunch of resources and materials come up. I don't know where they hid this survivor. Oh, there he is. Okay.
Thank you.
So, rescuing survivors also gives gifts and rewards, which again is usually can be anything from crafting resources to building resources for wood, brick, and metal for doing normal builds like you do in Battle Royale. It can be weapons, it can be traps, it can be a bunch of those different things. So, as you can see here, I can pick up these weapons as we sort of go, right? And different copies of weapons. So you're always sort of farming things as you go and defeat husks and other creatures. Will give you all sorts of resources. Now the last thing I wanted to show was doing a trap. Now I got to find some. So we've got some husks down there, right? So we're going to wake them up. So a common example, right, is that there are essentially 4 types of traps, right? There are ceiling traps, there are wall traps, there are floor traps, and there's a couple of traps that you can actually put on a ramp, right? So if we go in here, right, we go into our edit mode, there's an option to place traps. And this is similar to what it was in, if you played Battle Royale and used traps in that way. These are similar, but there are a lot more traps in Save the World, right? There are tons and tons and tons of traps in Save the World compared to what made its way in Battle Royale. So this is another way of, right, attacking creatures without having to use, right, without actually having to use your weapons and your ammo. So in this case, these floor spikes slow husks down and they cause damage to them, right? And you see that husk actually died. So if I sort of walk here, right, he takes damage and gets slowed down while he goes over the trap, right? We can also put sort of a ceiling trap up here. Let's just put a zapper, right? And this would be one that might have been used to seeing in Save the World, right? And those will also eliminate not only husks but any creatures that walk into them as well too. Okay, so those are your main ways of attacking husks. and enemies in the game. And yeah, right? So there's lots more to cover here on this, right? But I want to sort of cover those as the primary way that you can attack and fight things in Save the World. Okay? So we'll close out this mission, and we'll go deeper into completing the actual mission itself in another video. But that is episode 1, starting the game with your first hero, and how to do basic attacking and defense pieces with weapons, abilities, gadgets, and traps. All right, thanks for joining the video, and we will see you in the next episode.